Way back when smartphones and Cheetos were a technology that could only be harnessed by gods, we mammals, and later primates, had to fight for our right to party. And when I say party, I mean live. And this fight wasn't so much with each other, but instead with the harsh elements of nature. And during this challenging time period, which has accounted for 99.9% of primate history, the biological capability to sustain work for long periods of time without food was our superpower. A trait which may just be the secret behind a healthier today. Let's see how. Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and longevity and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic way. Today we are venturing into our evolutionary history and exploring how a phenomena called metabolic switching, otherwise known as metabolic flexibility, was not only a feature that enabled our ancestors to survive, but also maybe a good idea to flick on and off today, as it has displayed a number of protective properties that may enhance our vitality over time. AKA that longevity thing, or being the most functional, healthy, and happy you for the longest duration of time possible. And at the end of this video, we'll walk through the routine I use to up the med fed on the red. Metabolic flexibility on the regular. I was trying to be cool. Anyway, this discussion today was inspired by a 2018 paper that I recently stumbled upon, highlighting how regularly flipping the metabolic switch can come with a number of neuroprotective benefits, providing a theoretical overview of the concept with a bucket of supporting data backing it up. So let's talk through it and see what the hype is all about, and how it may help us age biologically slower. So to do this, a good place to start is probably by explaining what the hell metabolic switching or metabolic flexibility actually is. And at a high level, it's really kind of simple, I think. You'll be able to tell me after this in the comments. Please do. Intermittent metabolic switching is the terminology coined to describe the transition between cellular energy substrates, or cellular fuel, primarily being between glucose and fatty acids. This is a phenomena that is triggered when the body experiences a shortage in glucose, or its preferred fuel, for a period of time. And as a result, it turns to breaking down fat stores and turning fatty acids into ketone bodies to fuel cellular operations. This is also what happens when you enter ketosis as a byproduct of a keto diet. However, in that case, you are eating, but it is primarily fat and very small amounts of carbohydrates. And once glucose becomes prevalent again, say from eating a meal, the metabolic switch is turned back. This is the biological mechanism which allows us and many other animals to survive long periods of time without food. But not only do that, also allow us to stay active during these periods and do things such as hunt, forage, and walk at a slow, moderate pace on an inclined treadmill. Something that was pretty common for much of our primate ancestry. Except that last part. What a time to be alive. Now, what modern science has begun to uncover is the potential benefits behind flipping the metabolic switch and doing it often, as nutrient deprivation has been identified as a stimuli which sends the metabolic signal to hunker down at the cellular level and conserve, as this paper highlights, creating a biochemical shift which upregulates fat breakdown and conversion into ketone bodies, inhibits mTOR, or our cellular pathway which regulates growth and proliferation, drastically slowing it down, upregulates pathways like AMPK, which signals conservation and protects the healthy cells we have, boosts cellular cleanup and recycling processes, and reduces full body inflammation. All good things for keeping our biological business in business. And when this period of nutrient deprivation ends with a meal, hopefully a nourishing one, a reproliferation occurs, specifically with the strong, efficient cells which survive the tough times, reaping the benefits, a few of which enhancing brain health as this study pointed out, including improved neuroplasticity and cellular stress resistance, better motor performance and autonomic nervous system function, less leaky mitochondria, and better overall cellular function, thus boosted cognition, executive function, and mood. Rather interesting, no? All that being said, there is one major problem. Intermittent metabolic switching has become a lost art in this 24/7, all-waking day eating, ultra-processed, riddled modern world that we live in, where we're told to eat every 3 hours, consuming energy from the hour we get up to the hour we go to bed, not only stressing the digestive system and likely overeating, but leaving the metabolic switch stuck in glucose growth mode, making it harder and more taxing to switch back with every day that passes. And while doing so, sending the ongoing message to our cellular self to grow and proliferate, something which, when not balanced, can be a major driver of cellular damage, dysfunction, and ultimately disease. Yikes is right. But this is the unfortunate reality for many. With that, the question must be posed. How would one go about keeping this metabolic switch moving and grooving on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, decadely, and every other Ali basis? Well, there happens to be a number of potential approaches. Here's how I personally go about it. When you break down what triggers this flip switch to first principles, the main modulating factor seems to be nutrient availability. When nutrients, specifically carbohydrates or glucose, are abundant, they are prioritized as the first option for cellular fuel. However, when they're scarce, we turn on the fat harvesting and ketone synthesizing switch. So the most intuitive approach would be to deploy a strategy such as intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, designating a feeding window during the day and performing an extended overnight fast, a topic we have 60 plus videos on across the Fasting 101 playlist. This typically gives adequate amount of time for the metabolic switch to flip and is pretty sustainable when implemented slowly. A good initial goal after baselining yourself is aiming for a 10-hour feeding window and 14-hour overnighting fast on a consistent basis. Now, we must keep in mind that we also store glucose as glycogen in areas such as skeletal muscle and the liver, and slowly release it into circulation when needed. So it typically takes a few hours to a day to deplete these glucose stores, a process which can be dramatically increased by a little badonka-donking, aka exercise, which, might I add, also ramps up cellular recycling, the expression of protective longevity genes, and reduces inflammation, making a strategic time-restricted eating and exercise combo potentially the best thing you can do to manipulate your metabolic switch, enhance metabolic flexibility, and thus your odds, likelihood, and probability of longevity. But as we know, the tough part is the execution. And we gotta be real, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over many nights. So take it slow and be kind to yourself in the process. The most consistent coach you'll ever have is you. So why the hell would you be a a-hole coach to yourself? I mean, come on. With that, here is my current routine that I have formulated over years of slow and sustainable change. Not overnight, okay? Good. And also, I'm always tweaking this routine and trying new things. So always subject to change. And it does. It could be different next week. I usually let you guys know, but it changes. With that, I wake up at the same time each and every day with about 15 hours of fasting already complete. I hydrate, do about 15 minutes of light yoga as the sun rises, stretching the body out, activating the nervous system, lymphatic system, and aligning my circadian rhythms. Then I proceed to jump into my vigorous exercise for the day, which as discussed here is usually a functional 35-minute circuit. I personally prefer a fasted workout for the reasons we talked about today along with others, but if you don't, that's totally fine. From here, I hit a 20-minute sauna and meditation sesh, shower, and then open up my feeding window around 9 a.m. I start and end it with high protein options. Fish and eggs are my go-to sources, as discussed here, aiming for 1 gram per pound of body weight per day. I close my feeding window at 3 p.m., enjoy a nice evening walk, and proceed to fast until the honorary breaking of the fast the next day, aka break fast. Breakfast. Did you just figure out why it was called that? Here I'm mixing fasting and movement in a way that depletes my glucose stores and likely flips my metabolic switch on a daily basis, strategically positioning my movement before and after my biggest meals of the day, and getting a nice prolonged fast in between. And in the past, when I've tracked my ketones following this strategy, I typically see elevated numbers in the morning, and that's without doing any active carbohydrate restriction. In fact, eating a lot of carbohydrates. You may notice that I also finish eating a little early. And what I'll say is, I've been doing this for years and I explain all the rationale behind it in this video here. That being said, this is just what works the best for me. And as I do my best to remind everyone each and every video, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best for you and your unique lifestyle variables. The best approach is always the one that you can implement and sustain. So take your time and ease into it. Think about one change at a time. Maybe it's a feeding window. Maybe it's a daily walk. Anything that gets you just a little more metabolically flexible is likely good for your biological business. And the good news is, you got all the cellular machinery you need ready to go. Now it's just about conducting it in a way through lifestyle that brings out your biological best. So pick up the baton already and start owning your health. Because when you do, you own your outcome, which is pretty cool. You, maestro you.